Every year I try to grow sweet peppers, and every year this happens. They look fine at first, but before I can even harvest them, they're starting to rot on the plant. Last year, I barely got anything. This year, I set a goal of 36 pounds of sweet peppers. But to get there, I have to figure out what's actually destroying them. Because it turns out there's two completely different problems that can cause this, and I think I'm dealing with both. The first possibility came from one of you. A viewer had told me to look into something called the pepper fly. And to be honest, I had never heard of it. The pepper fly is a small amber color fly that targets developing peppers. These flies lay their eggs directly into the fruit. And then the maggot eats the pepper from the inside out, which causes it to ripen early, rot, and become completely inedible. I have absolutely seen these little flies flying around the garden, but I always kind of thought flies were harmless. I'm finding out more and more that flies are actually one of my biggest pests that is doing a lot of damage to many of my veggies. The pepper fly loves thick-walled sweet peppers, which are the only type of sweet pepper I really want to eat. I've had some success with the Hungarian yellow sweet peppers, but their thin walls just aren't as appealing to me in the kitchen. While they're very productive, I just don't end up using them. I like using the red, thick-walled sweet peppers for roasting for pasta dishes or in fajitas. My solution to this fly problem are these small mesh bags that I'll put on the developing peppers after the blossoms have been pollinated. My hope is that the mesh will stop the fly from being able to reach the developing pepper, therefore not allowing it to lay its eggs in the first place. This method is going to take a little bit of time because I have to be on it. As soon as those fruits start to develop, these bags need to go on. So a couple times a week, I'm going to have to go around to the 18 sweet peppers that I'm planning to plant and check them for new developing fruit. But they say that the gardener's shadow is one of the best things for the garden. So I'm seeing this as another opportunity for me to be present in the garden. Because I don't like relying on one method of pest prevention, I'm also going to interplant the peppers with some marigolds. The goal for the marigolds is to provide some scent confusion for the peppers. If you've ever been around a marigold, you know that their smell can perfume the air. The marigold variety I'm looking at is called Strawberry Blonde, which blooms change color from yellow to coral to rose. I don't really love the bright orange and reds of traditional marigolds, so I'm hoping this Strawberry Blonde variety will better fit my color palette. Strawberry Blonde is a French marigold that stays petite, which I think will be perfect for tucking in between the peppers. If you have any experience with the pepper fly, I would love to know your go-to methods of prevention. But even if I can stop the pests, there's still another issue that can cause peppers to rot. And this one's far more common. And it's not even an insect at all. You might have seen this before. Your peppers are starting to develop, and then all of a sudden there'll be a dark, sunken, soft spot right at the blossom end. This is called blossom end rot. It's usually described as a calcium deficiency in the fruit, but it's a little bit more complicated than that. Most of the time, the problem isn't that there isn't calcium in the soil, it's that the plants can't take up the calcium consistently. And this usually comes down to one thing: watering. If the soil dries out and then gets watered heavily, the plants basically can't take up the calcium and move it to the fruit. And that's when you'll start to see the rot, even when everything else looks healthy. Looking back at how I've grown peppers over the years, inconsistent watering is definitely one of my issues. I plant my peppers in the July heat. They get going when we're typically in a drought, and I don't think I've done enough due diligence to ensure that their watering is up to their standards. So this year I am focusing on keeping the moisture in the soil as much as possible. I'm going to do this by mulching the pepper plants with broccoli leaves from my spring crop and grass clippings. Basically anything that'll keep that moisture in the soil. This layer will slow down evaporation when the sun is beating down on the soil. I'm also going to add some calcium fortified fertilizers to the pepper plants at planting time. I just want to make sure that there's enough calcium in the soil, even though it is much more likely that the problem is inconsistent watering, especially because these peppers are going in after a heavy feeding crop like broccoli. And I just want to make sure nothing is depleted. Broccoli itself uses a fair bit of calcium to form those big heads. So between the pests and the watering issues, there's a few different ways my peppers could fail, which is why this year I want to give them the best start possible. Because both problems are hard to deal with if I start with unhealthy plants to begin with. I'll be starting my pepper seeds early, about 12 weeks before I'm ready for them to go into the garden. For me, peppers go into my garden after my spring broccoli, which is out of the garden by July 1st. I'll start the seeds indoors on a heat mat around April 8th. I'm focusing on thick-walled sweet peppers because those are the ones we like to eat, even if they're more prone to pests. I'm only planting one variety because I want to limit my variables. I want to figure out if covering the plants and watering them consistently fixes my issue, and having lots of different varieties seemed to muddy the water. So the variety I picked is called Lipstick. It is a fast-maturing, thick-walled, crunchy, very sweet red pepper. Quick maturing is especially important to me because it's a succession crop. I can't have the pepper take 90 days to ripen. I needed something more in the 70-day range. This year, I'm starting all my seeds in soil blocks. I find it easier to keep the soil blocks evenly moist than in pots. I tend to overwater things when they're in pots. Soil blocks make it easier for me to grow strong, compact seedlings without any root issues. Last year, I had potted up my peppers into these clear cups, and when it came time to hardening them off, I found it incredibly hard to keep that soil moist. That clear plastic just acted like a magnifying glass at evaporating the water out of that soil. The soil would dry out so quick, and I think that inconsistency followed them throughout the season. This year, if the peppers need to be pot up, I'm just going to create these soil balls around them. That way I can control the moisture so much better. The soil balls are also a larger volume of soil, which I think will help keep the peppers more evenly moist. It is often easier to keep a large amount of soil moist than a small amount of soil. Because if I can start with strong, healthy, well-watered seedlings and manage the pest and watering issues in the garden, 36 pounds of peppers might actually be possible. Now it's really a matter of putting this all into practice and seeing how it works out. And if it does work, this could be the year I finally have a successful harvest of sweet peppers. In my next video, I'll show you what I'm doing in my cold March garden to set up a successful garden season.